CreepyCorner stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I spit out the drink I ordered from the dark web that was meant to kill me. Now I regret it. Okay, I've been going back and forth on whether I should even post this. Not because I think you won't believe me. Honestly, I don't care if you do. But because I'm not sure if putting this out there is going to make things worse, or I will be probably dead while you are listening this story. But if anything happens to me after this, at least someone will know what I saw. It started at the end of June. I was pulling another one of my midnight TikTok marathons in my apartment. I live alone, technically in a studio, but it's really just a glorified shoebox with a bathroom and a kitchen the size of a Starbucks counter. Speaking of Starbucks, that's where I work. Not glamorous, I know. My life's been meh lately. Work, scroll, sleep, repeat. Anyway, I'm laying there with the lights off, watching this guy on YouTube talk about top 10 things you should never buy on the dark web. You know the type. Dramatic music, creepy stock photos, titles like, "He ordered this and died 24 hours later." Halfway through the video, my phone lights up. It's a Discord notification from my friend Eli. He's one of those people who somehow always finds the weirdest corners of the internet. He once sent me a live stream of a guy just staring at a fish tank for 6 hours straight. Eli, bro, check this out. No joke, you have to see this. He sends me a screenshot, some sketchy marketplace page. The listing title, in all caps, "Death Drink, Guaranteed Effect within 48 hours. Price? $35 in Bitcoin. The picture showed a can that looked like Monster Energy, but the logo was distorted, almost glitchy looking, and the drink inside was this weird, shiny red, like antifreeze mixed with cough syrup. The description was even worse. Tastes like nostalgia. Your life will flash before your eyes before the effect takes place. Zero pain. I sent him the emoji and told him it looked like some dumb or fake horror story bait. But Eli? Number. He swore people had actually bought it. He sent me a link to a thread on a hidden forum. No gore, no obvious trolling. Just these short, cryptic replies from verified buyers. Worth every penny. My dad called me before it hit. I finally got to see her again. It's like being hugged from the inside before it's over. I don't know why that last one stuck in my head. Now, I'm not a dark web guy. I'm just not. But lately I'd been feeling stuck. Like life was just on autopilot. Wake up, Starbucks shift, scroll Instagram, watch people my age travel, and get engaged while I'm counting the minutes until I can go back to bed. Maybe I just wanted something weird to happen, something different. So I downloaded Tor, just to look. The site was so bare bones it looked fake, like 2003 MySpace level HTML. No checkout fields for shipping, just a line that said, "Leave your phone on, location services enabled, we'll find you." I laughed out loud, like, sure buddy. But the more I looked at it, the more it felt like one of those things you either walk away from immediately or commit to all the way. At 3:14 a.m., I clicked pay. Bitcoin sent. I woke up the next morning, half convinced nothing would happen. But then, around 2 p.m. during my shift, I got an airdrop request from an unknown sender. My phone screen said, from DeathDrink01. I didn't accept it. I just glanced outside the front window, and there it was. A black van, no logos, just parked across the street, facing the store. The driver was wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. That night, when I got home, there was a box outside my apartment door. No label, no tape, not even a return address. Inside, a single glass bottle, not like the can in the listing. This one was taller, the glass frosted, so you couldn't quite see inside. But when I tilted it, the same shimmering red swirl caught the light. Around the neck of the bottle was a strip of masking tape, and in smudged Sharpie it said, "Drink before midnight." Here's the part that still freaks me out. The inside of the box had this faint, sticky ring, like something had spilled or leaked. And when I set the bottle down, my fingers smelled like iron, like blood. I didn't drink it that night, not because I was scared, at least not in the way you think. It was more like my body just wouldn't let me. I set the bottle down on my counter and went to heat up some leftover pizza. But as the microwave hummed, I kept glancing at it. The way the liquid shifted when the fridge light hit it. That faint metallic smell that clung to my fingers no matter how many times I washed them. Around 10:30 p.m., I decided I'd just throw it away. Not even open it. Just toss it down the garbage chute in the hallway. But the second I stepped out, I noticed something. There were muddy footprints in the hallway carpet. Bare feet. They weren't heading toward my door. They were coming out of it. I froze. I live on the 6th floor. Nobody just walks in barefoot unless they've been inside. I checked my door. Locked. The deadbolt was still turned. When I stepped back into my apartment, I swear I could still smell it. The same smell from the box. Not just metallic now, but warm. Like the way pennies smell when you've held them in your fist too long. I told myself I was being paranoid. I put the bottle in my fridge, slammed the door, and decided I'd sleep it off. But around 3:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of my front door unlocking. It wasn't loud, just that soft click of the deadbolt turning. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The floor creaked. Slow, deliberate steps. I heard the fridge door open, the sound of glass being lifted. Then, a whisper, right next to my bedroom door. "It's cold now. Better that way." The floor creaked again, and then silence. I stayed in bed until sunrise, holding my phone like a weapon. When I finally got up, the bottle was sitting on my nightstand. The masking tape note was gone. Instead, there was a piece of printer paper folded neatly underneath it. On it, in the same Sharpie handwriting, "One sip, or we'll make you finish." I didn't go to work that day. I didn't even shower. I just sat in my kitchen, staring at the bottle. Every so often, my phone would buzz with random notifications. Instagram likes from accounts I didn't recognize, all with no profile pictures. Usernames like, "Take a sip, not request 2 days left." I blocked them, but more kept popping up. My Discord kept getting spammed with calls from unknown accounts. When I finally answered one out of pure desperation, there was no voice, just the sound of gulping, slow, wet. I smashed my laptop shut. By that night, I decided to get rid of it for real. I stuffed it in a grocery bag, tied it tight, and walked it to the dumpster behind my building. When I threw it in, it made the strangest sound. Not glass breaking, but a thick, muffled splash, like dropping a rock into mud. I went to bed thinking that was it. The next morning, the bottle was back in my fridge. The masking tape had returned, and this time, there was something inside the bottle. Floating. A tooth. Human. Molar. I didn't touch it. I didn't even open the fridge for the rest of the day. But that night, I saw the van again. Same spot across the street. Engine running. This time, the back door was cracked open, just enough for me to see what was inside. A man was sitting there, hunched over something. His hands were red, not like blood splatter in movies, not shiny, not fresh, but dry, flaky, like it had been there for hours. When he noticed me looking, he smiled, and I swear to God, he raised his hand and held up another bottle. Same shape, same shimmer, but inside his, it was full of teeth. I didn't sleep the night after seeing the man in the van. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that grin, too wide, too steady, and the way the bottle in his hand caught the glow of the streetlight. I sat on my couch, with every light in the apartment on, clutching the heaviest pan I owned, just listening. Around 4:26 a.m., my phone vibrated. No ringtone, just the vibration. It was a FaceTime call from an unknown number. I don't know why I answered. The screen was dark at first, like the camera was pointed at the floor. Then it slowly tilted up. It was my front door, from the hallway. I froze. My building's security cameras are garbage. There's no way they got a feed like that, which meant someone was standing there, right then, filming. And as I stared at the screen, the person behind the camera started humming. Low, slow, almost tuneless. The kind of humming people do when they're trying to calm themselves down, or trying not to laugh. The call ended. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear the elevator. But a minute later, there was a knock. Not loud, just 3 soft taps. I sat there until the sun came up. When I finally checked the peephole, the hallway was empty, but there was something hanging on my doorknob, a Polaroid photo. It was me, sleeping. I recognized the shirt, an old gray one with a bleach stain on the collar, but the photo wasn't from last night. It was from that morning. I could tell because of the way my hair was still damp from the shower, which meant they had been inside my apartment after I'd locked the door. Again, that afternoon, I left work early. I told my manager I was sick, but the truth was I couldn't stand being away from the apartment, knowing they could just walk in. I bought a new deadbolt from Home Depot and one of those sliding chain locks. I drilled it in myself. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the door. It didn't matter. At exactly 12 a.m., my phone lit up. A text message from an unknown number. No words, just a video file. I opened it. It was me, from about 10 minutes earlier, sitting on the couch, scrolling my phone. The camera was shaking slightly, like whoever was holding it was breathing hard. And then the angle tilted, and I could see the bottle in the shot, except it wasn't on the kitchen counter anymore. It was on the couch, right next to me. The video ended. When I looked at my couch now, the bottle was sitting there, and there was something different about it. The liquid inside wasn't shimmering red anymore. It was darker, almost black, and floating near the surface was something small and pale. A fingernail. I stood up so fast my knees pumped. I grabbed the bottle with a dish towel and shoved it in my bathroom cabinet, under the sink. Out of sight, out of reach. Around 2 a.m., the power went out. It wasn't the whole building, just my unit. I could see the glow from other apartments through the blinds. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam caught something on the wall near my bathroom. Writing. Dozens of sentences, all scrawled in that same Sharpie handwriting from the masking tape. Don't make us waste it. It's already yours. It's not poison, it's a gift. And at the very bottom, in letters so big they stretched from the tile to the ceiling, 1 sip tonight, or we come inside. My heart was pounding so loud, I could hear it in my ears. I didn't even bother cleaning the wall. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, and wedged a chair under the handle. Around 3:40 a.m., I woke up to the sound of something dragging across the floor. Not heavy furniture, something smaller. Glass. When I turned on my phone flashlight, the bottle was on my nightstand again. This time, there was no masking tape, no note, just a fresh, deep scratch across the glass, like someone had pressed a blade against it and carved a single word. Swallow. The thing is, I never heard my bedroom door open. When I saw that word carved into the bottle, something inside me broke. Not fear, not even panic, just this sinking, solid weight in my chest. The kind you feel when you realize you're not getting out of something alive. I stayed in bed until my phone said 5 a.m. That's when I thought I heard them leave. Faint footsteps, followed by the slow squeal of my front door closing. I waited another 20 minutes, then forced myself to move. I didn't even touch the bottle this time. I wrapped it in a towel and shoved it into my backpack. My plan was simple. Get to my car, drive to the nearest bridge, and drop it into the river. I never made it to the car. The elevator door slid open, and there they were. There were 3 of them, all in plain clothes, no masks. The first one was the man from the van, the one with the dried red hands. Up close, his eyes were even worse than I imagined, cloudy, like marbles soaked in milk. He smiled like we were old friends. The second was a woman. Her hair was wet, dripping onto the carpet. She carried a duffel bag that was dripping too. The third was a kid. Couldn't have been older than 15. Skinny, pale, wearing a faded Disneyland hoodie. He was holding a camera, pointed right at me. The lens had a crack running through it, and through the crack, I could see my own face. Wide-eyed, frozen. The man stepped forward and spoke in a voice that was calm. Too calm. "You're late." I backed into the elevator wall. My thumb hovered over the emergency button, but the woman unzipped her duffel bag and set it on the floor between us. Inside were dozens of bottles, all identical to mine. Each one had something floating in it. Bits of hair, teeth, small bones, something that looked like a fingertip. The man reached into the bag and pulled out one with a cloudy liquid, and what I swear was an ear pressed against the glass from the inside. He held it up between us like it was a wine tasting. "You think you're the first one to hesitate. We've done this hundreds of times." The kid kept filming. I could hear the faint whir of the camera's dying battery. The woman stepped forward, opened my backpack, and pulled my bottle out. She twisted the cap with a slow, deliberate motion. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a hiss, maybe a fizz. But instead, there was this faint breathing sound from inside. Warm air hit my face. It smelled sweet, but underneath it was something sharp, rotten. The man tilted the bottle toward my mouth. I turned my head, pressed my lips together so hard they hurt. His smile didn't falter. Do you know why it smells like that? Because it's alive. It's waiting. And if you don't let it in, it'll come find the way itself. The kid lowered the camera just enough for me to see his hands shaking. I don't think he wanted to be there. I don't think he had a choice. The woman muttered something I didn't catch, then pulled a small object from her pocket. It was a needle, not for injection, the kind you use for sewing. She slid it under my fingernail and pushed. The pain was blinding. I gasped. The man used that moment to press the mouth of the bottle against mine. The liquid touched my lips. Thick, warm, almost syrupy. My tongue burned instantly, like I'd licked a battery. I shoved him with everything I had. The bottle hit the floor. The liquid splattered, not like a drink, but like meat juice. Thick, dark, clinging to the carpet in ropes. It started moving, not spilling, crawling, curling toward the nearest drain in the corner of the hallway, leaving streaks of red-black slime. The man's face twisted into something raw and hateful. He stepped toward me, but the kid spoke for the first time. A whisper so fast, I almost didn't catch it. Run, before it gets back in. I did. I ran down the stairwell, out the side door, barefoot. I didn't stop until I reached the 24-hour diner 3 blocks away. I sat in a booth, shaking, telling myself I'd just call the police, tell them everything. But when I reached for my phone, it wasn't mine. It was the kid's camera, and on the screen was a live feed. My apartment. The bottle was back on my kitchen counter, and something inside was pressing against the glass, leaving smears where a mouth would be. I didn't go back to my apartment after the diner. I wandered the streets for hours, still holding that cracked camera like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Every time I looked at the little screen, it showed the same thing. My kitchen, lit by that dull yellow bulb above the stove. And the bottle. It wasn't sitting still anymore. It had moved closer to the edge of the counter. Every time I checked, it was a little closer, like it knew I was watching. By sunrise, I convinced myself I'd just throw the camera in the nearest trash can, get on a bus, and disappear. But when I reached into my jacket pocket for it, it was gone. I don't remember letting go of it. I didn't even get 10 steps before a black SUV pulled up beside me. Not the van this time. Something newer, cleaner. The back window rolled down. It was the kid. He looked worse than before. His face was pale, lips chapped, eyes darting around, like he was waiting for someone to drag him back inside. He didn't speak at first. He just held out the camera. The footage had changed. It wasn't my kitchen anymore. It was me, sitting at the diner booth, sleeping, my head against the table, and on the table in front of me was the bottle, but the cap was gone. The kid's voice shook when he finally spoke. It doesn't like waiting. Before I could ask what he meant, the back door of the SUV swung open, and 2 hands yanked me inside. They weren't rough, not at first. Almost gentle, like someone helping a drunk friend into bed. The smell hit me before my eyes adjusted. Metallic sweetness, thick enough to taste. The woman with the wet hair was there, still dripping. But now her hair wasn't just wet. Strands clung to her face, like they'd been glued there with something darker. She was holding the bottle in her lap, like a newborn. The liquid inside was thicker now, swirling in slow, deliberate shapes. The man from the van sat across from me. No smile this time. His voice was lower. You can drink it on your own, or we can pour it in you another way. The kid wouldn't look at me. The SUV drove for what felt like hours, out of the city, past the highway, into some industrial area that smelled like rust and stagnant water. We stopped at a warehouse with no signs, no windows. Inside, it was freezing. The concrete floor was stained in patches that didn't look like oil. They led me to a table in the center. I thought they were going to tie me down, but they didn't have to. The woman just set the bottle in front of me, unscrewed the cap, and waited. The liquid inside pulsed, actually pulsed, like a heartbeat, and I could hear it now. Not a hum, not a hiss. Breathing. The man leaned in close enough that I could feel the warmth of his words against my ear. Every sip is a seed. It grows in you. It remembers everything you've ever tasted, every voice you've ever heard. And when it's done, you're gone. But it stays. In your skin. In your eyes. He reached into his coat and pulled out a phone. He held it so I could see the screen. There were photos. Dozens, maybe hundreds. People smiling. People asleep. People screaming. All with the same faint shimmer in their eyes. You'll still be here. Just not you anymore. I tried to push the bottle away, but my hands wouldn't move. Not like they were restrained. Like my own muscles had stopped listening. The woman tilted the bottle toward my mouth. The first drop hit my tongue. It was warm, sweet, almost familiar, like the first sip of hot chocolate you had as a kid after playing in the snow all day. For half a second, I wanted more. Then it moved, not down my throat, up, into my gums, into my sinuses, into my eyes. My vision blurred, but not from tears. The liquid was inside my vision now, swirling, coating everything red. I could feel it in my ears, whispering in a dozen voices at once. Some I recognized, some I didn't. The kid spoke again, barely audible. Once it's in you, it never leaves, not even if they cut you open. I fought it. I spit. The liquid hit the floor and writhed, hissing like it had been burned. The man's expression changed for the first time. Pure rage. He grabbed the back of my head and slammed my face toward the table. My teeth hit the rim of the bottle. I tasted blood. He forced it in. I swallowed before I could stop myself. It was cold this time. And it laughed. I don't remember leaving the warehouse. I don't remember the drive back. All I know is I woke up in my bed this morning. The bottle was gone. My phone was on my chest. One new message. From my own number. It's better this way. You'll see. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. When I looked up into the mirror, my reflection smiled. I didn't. My family doesn't have a graveyard. We have a pantry. I found on the dark web why. If you've ever been to a small rural town, you know how quiet they can be. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in the From series. And before you judge me, yeah, that's my favorite one. So, that's where I grew up, upstate New York, about 45 minutes from anything remotely resembling a city. Our house sits right where the forest starts swallowing the road. Big, old, and probably worth nothing because of how far it is from civilization. I've lived here for 18 years. I know every creak of the floorboards, every cold spot in the hallway, every weird smell that seeps up from the basement. But there's one part of the house I've never been able to figure out. The pantry. Our pantry is at the far end of the kitchen, past the coffee maker and my mom's collection of Starbucks mugs from different states. It's behind a heavy wooden door with one of those old-fashioned brass keyholes. There's no actual lock, but the door sticks like crazy. You have to lean into it to get it open. Inside, it's just a pantry. Cans of Campbell's soup, dusty jars labeled in my mom's handwriting, boxes of pasta, bags of rice. At first glance, it's nothing worth thinking about, except if you go all the way to the back, there's another door, and this one's different. It's short, maybe 5 feet tall, and made of metal, the kind you'd see on a walk-in freezer in a restaurant. The handle's cold even in the summer. The first time I asked my mom what was behind it, she didn't even look up from what she was doing. She just said, "Storage. You're not allowed in there. It's dangerous." When I asked why it was dangerous, she just said, "Mold," in this sharp, quick way that felt like she was shutting the conversation down hard. But here's the thing. I've never seen that door open, not once. And I've tried knocking on it before, just out of curiosity. It doesn't sound hollow. It sounds solid, like whatever's behind it is filled, not empty. I never thought much about it, at least not until 2 weeks ago. I was in my room, scrolling through YouTube like always, when I stumbled across a video from this small horror channel I'd never seen before. The title was, "I found the pantry book on the dark web. Never again." Normally, I assume those dark web videos are clickbait, but this guy wasn't over the top. He didn't have scary music blasting or exaggerated reactions. He just seemed nervous. He explained he'd been browsing hidden marketplaces through Tor, looking for weird stuff to make a video about, when he found a listing for something called the pantry book. The thumbnail was just a blurry screenshot of a metal door in a dimly lit room, and when he showed the full picture, my stomach dropped. It was our pantry, the same wood shelves, the same unplugged mini fridge in the corner, and the same short metal door in the back. The listing description was short: for discreet, long-term storage. No smell, no noise after 3 days. Includes detailed instructions. Bitcoin only. The video host said it cost around $600 in Bitcoin. He bought it, and what he got wasn't a book in the traditional sense. It was a PDF manual. He blurred most of the pages, but I caught glimpses of words as he scrolled. Subterranean chamber, maximum body weight, air ration schedule, and one sentence, clear as day. They can still hear you through the floor, but they won't respond after 3 days. That part made him stop reading out loud. His voice actually cracked. The weirdest part? He never finished the video. Right when he was about to open the materials list section, the footage just cut to black. No outro, no like and subscribe. Just gone. When I tried to click his channel again, it said the page didn't exist. That same night, around 1 a.m., I was making ramen in the kitchen. Parents were asleep upstairs. My phone was charging in my room, so it was just me and the sound of boiling water. And then I heard it. Something from the pantry. At first, I thought it was the house settling. You know, wood shifting in the cold. But then it came again. Not a creak, not a thump. A voice. Muffled. Low. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew it was human. I stood there, packet of ramen still in my hand, just listening. My skin felt like it was crawling inward. It spoke again, slow, almost like someone trying to talk through a pillow. I didn't go in. I couldn't. But I didn't sleep that night either. If my family doesn't have a graveyard, what exactly is behind that door? I didn't sleep the night I heard the voice. Not because I was scared, not at first, but because my brain wouldn't shut up. It just kept looping the sound over and over, trying to make sense of it. The more I replayed it in my head, the more I realized it didn't sound like someone calling for help. It sounded like a conversation, like there were two people talking in there. The next morning, my parents acted completely normal. My mom was making pancakes. My dad was scrolling through Facebook at the kitchen table, and no one mentioned the pantry. I kept waiting for something. Maybe my mom saying she heard an animal in there, or that she had to check the storage. Nothing. So I decided I'd check it myself. That night, after they went to bed, I set my phone against the microwave and hit record. I left it running while I sat in my room pretending to watch Netflix, glancing at the clock every 5 minutes, like I was waiting for a bomb to go off. Around 2:12 a.m., I crept back to the kitchen, stopped the recording, and took my phone upstairs. It took me a while to work up the nerve to play it back. For the first 20 minutes, it was just the fridge humming, the occasional tick of the house settling. Then, faint but clear, came scratching, not like a rat or raccoon, more like someone dragging their nails slowly along metal. Then, breathing, slow, ragged, almost wet, and then a voice. They'll come back. They always come back. I swear to God, my stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to throw up. But it didn't stop there. Another voice, sharper, hissed back. No, they won't. She doesn't like it when we talk. The rest of the recording was just silence, until the very end, when there was this sound I still can't get out of my head. Something heavy, shifting across the floor, followed by a single, loud thump. I barely slept, but I couldn't stop myself from going deeper. The next day, I started digging online. I didn't use Google, I used Tor. It took a few hours of clicking through sketchy forums before I found it. A thread with the same pantry picture I'd seen in the YouTube video. The post title was, Model Type 4B, Still Operational. The comments were worse than I could have imagined. They weren't talking about furniture or buildings. They were talking about people. Things like, ours lasted 13 months before the noise got bad. Airflow system clogs fast. Keep a bucket. Use lime to mask smell, but don't overdo it. One comment stopped me cold. A user posted, only one known in upstate New York. Old brick house near redacted. Owner keeps it under kitchen pantry. Descendant inherited property in 2007. I was born in 2007. That night, I couldn't stop staring at the pantry door. My parents were both asleep. The house was dead silent, and I just stood there in the kitchen with my hand on the wooden handle. When I finally opened the pantry, it was pitch black inside. The unplugged fridge sat in the corner like always, but the air smelled different. Not bad exactly, just heavy, like an empty attic in the middle of summer. I crept to the back until I was standing right in front of the metal door. Up close, it wasn't perfectly smooth like I'd thought. It had little dents, tiny scratches around the edges, and when I pressed my ear against it, I felt something I wasn't ready for. Heat. Someone was breathing on the other side. I stumbled back, heart pounding so loud I thought it would wake my parents. I don't even remember getting to my room, just locking the door and sitting on the floor with my back against it. At around 3 a.m., I got a DM on Instagram from an account with no profile picture and the username Pantry Care. It said, "Stop listening, or they'll move you downstairs too." I've never blocked someone so fast in my life, but the damage was already done. Because now, when I walk into the kitchen, the pantry door doesn't just feel heavy, it feels like it's waiting. And last night, I heard it knock back. The night the pantry door knocked back, I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not the cops, and especially not my parents. I didn't even write it down. I knew that if I acknowledged it too loudly, something would change. And I was right, because 3 nights later, I woke up to my phone vibrating under my pillow. It was a new DM, no profile picture, different username this time, pantry feed. No words, just a 17-second video file. I didn't want to open it. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. It started in total darkness. Then the camera shifted, and I saw dim yellow light flooding in through a crack in a metal door, my metal door. And in that crack, a single eye stared back, bloodshot, glossy, twitching. I couldn't tell if it was looking at me or through me. Halfway through the video, a voice whispered, "She hasn't eaten today." Then the camera moved to the side, and I saw fingers, raw, blistered fingers, scratching something into the metal. Over and over, "Let me out, let me out, let me out," until the nails bent backwards and left smears of blood. The video ended there. For the rest of that night, I sat against my bedroom wall, lights on, every sound in the house, feeling too loud. The next morning, my mom was in the kitchen making coffee like nothing happened. She didn't look at me, didn't say good morning, just stirred her cup in slow, silent circles. And that's when I saw it. Her nails were perfectly clean, but the skin around them was raw, like she'd been picking at something. That day, I decided to find out where the door led. I didn't want to just open it, not yet. I needed to know what I was dealing with first. So I went on tour again, back to the same forum. I searched Model Type 4B and Subterranean Chamber. I found an archived post from 2014 with GPS coordinates. They led to a McDonald's parking lot in Syracuse, which made no sense until I read the rest of the thread. The first comment was just a link to an old local news story. 3 McDonald's employees missing, last seen in walk-in freezer. It happened in 1998. No suspects, no signs of forced entry, just 3 people gone. One of the replies to that thread sent me somewhere worse. A hidden page full of grainy security footage clips. One of the clips was from inside that McDonald's freezer. The camera showed the 3 employees at first, moving boxes around like normal. Then the light flickered, and all 3 turned to look at something off camera. One of them, a guy in his 20s, backed up so fast he hit the shelves. The others froze, staring. Then, they walked toward whatever they were seeing, like they were in a trance. One by one, they stepped out of frame. The light flickered again, and when it came back, the freezer was empty. The final clip was from outside the freezer. The timestamp was 2 hours later. You could see the freezer door, and in the reflection of the stainless steel, a shape, shorter than a person, pale, moving in jerky, unnatural steps. And as it got closer to the camera, the feed cut. The username that posted the footage, Pantry Feed. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the eye in the crack. I had to know. Around 1:40 a.m., I went to the kitchen with my phone flashlight. The pantry floor creaked under me, like it knew I shouldn't be there. I stood in front of the metal door, heart pounding so hard it made my vision blur. The handle was ice cold. When I pulled, it didn't swing open. It slid, with this awful grinding sound like rusted gears. The smell hit first, not rotting, worse, damp, metallic, thick, like breathing in a handful of coins that had been soaking in blood. I aimed my light inside. There was no floor at first, just a steep concrete ramp leading down into darkness. The walls weren't smooth. They were lined with deep, claw-like gouges, as if someone had been trying to climb out. And then, movement. Not fast, not animal-like, just slow, deliberate shifting, like something standing up after a long time. My light caught an arm, thin, stretched, the skin pale and bruised, fingers too long, nails cracked and black. The thing tilted its head up toward me, but I didn't see a face. I saw a mask, a human face, dried and stiff, stretched over something else. The mouth didn't move when it spoke. "She told me your name." I slammed the door. I don't remember running to my room, just locking the door and shoving my dresser against it. The next morning, the pantry door was closed. No scratch marks, no smell. My parents were eating breakfast like always. My dad looked up at me, smiling, and said, "Sleep well?" I think I nodded, but I couldn't stop staring at the raw skin around his nails. After I saw the thing in the pantry, I didn't go near it for 2 days. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it, some kind of sleep-deprived hallucination mixed with the weird videos I'd been watching. But on the 3rd day, my best friend Noah went missing. We were supposed to meet at the McDonald's near the highway after school. I sat in the booth by the window for almost an hour, scrolling through my phone, thinking he was just running late. He never showed. By nightfall, his parents were calling everyone. By the next morning, his face was on Facebook, with "missing" in big red letters. The comment section was full of people offering thoughts and prayers, and one comment, buried halfway down, from an account with no profile picture, simply said, "Check the storage." I didn't tell anyone, but I already knew where to check. That night, my parents went out. They never go out together, not at night, but they did, without saying where they were going. I waited 20 minutes after they left, then went to the kitchen. This time, I brought gloves. The pantry door was heavier than I remembered, like it didn't want to open. When it finally gave way, the smell that poured out was different from before, sharper, like copper and damp earth. I slid the metal door open and turned on my phone's flashlight. At first, it just looked empty. The ramp led down into that same damp concrete tunnel. I took one step inside, then another. The air felt heavier the further I went, like walking underwater. And then I saw the first bag. Black plastic, tied at the top, half collapsed, like whatever was inside had shifted. Next to it was another, and another. Some had been there so long the plastic was coated in pale fuzz, like fungus. The ramp flattened out into a wider chamber, and that's when I saw them. Not bags, not piles. Rows. Rows of people. They weren't chained or tied. They just sat against the walls, legs pulled to their chests, arms wrapped around themselves. Their eyes followed me, but didn't blink. Their skin was gray, paper thin, stretched tight over bone. Some had lips split down the middle. Others had teeth so worn they were little more than stubs. A few still had chunks of hair, matted into knots. The worst part, they were silent. I don't know why I whispered, but I did. "Noah?" A head turned slowly from the corner. It was him. His eyes were sunken, his jaw slack, but it was him. He opened his mouth like he was about to say something, but before any sound came out, there was a shuffle of movement from the far wall. Something stood up. It wasn't human, at least not anymore. It was tall, thin to the point of snapping, its joints too sharp. Its skin was pulled so tight across its face, you could see the skull underneath. And hanging around its neck was something I recognized instantly. My dad's wedding ring on a chain. I froze. My flashlight shook so badly the beam bounced across the walls, catching flashes of pale limbs and wet eyes. The thing tilted its head and stepped closer, and in a voice that wasn't quite my dad's, it said, "You're not supposed to be here yet." Then it raised one long, thin finger and pointed at me. The sound that came from the others in the room wasn't a scream. It wasn't even a moan. It was a slow, dry rattling, dozens of throats pushing out air at once, like a broken wind chime made of bone. I ran. I don't remember climbing the ramp or slamming the door shut. Just the sound of my own breathing drowning out everything else. When my parents came home later that night, they didn't ask why I was awake. My mom just set a brown paper grocery bag on the counter, and I noticed the bottom was damp. She saw me looking and smiled in this slow, knowing way that made my stomach turn. The next morning, Noah's missing poster was gone from Facebook. His profile was deleted. It was like he'd never existed. But when I opened Instagram, there was a new DM from Pantry Feed. A photo. It was me, standing in the chamber, holding my flashlight, and behind me, in the darkness, something tall and thin was smiling. It's strange how quickly you can get used to living with something you can't unsee. The week after I found Noah in the chamber, I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't eat much. I barely slept. I just kept waiting for my parents to say something, to hint they knew I'd been inside. But they didn't, until the night they did. It was a Friday. Rain tapping against the kitchen windows. House smelling faintly of bleach. My mom was sitting at the table with a mug of tea she wasn't drinking. My dad was leaning against the counter, arms folded. They were both looking at me in this way that made me feel like the only person in the room. My mom spoke first. "We think you're old enough now." She said it gently, like she was telling me I could finally drive the car. They led me into the pantry without touching me, but I felt guided, like invisible hands were keeping me from turning back. The wooden door creaked shut behind us, and my dad slid open the metal one. The smell hit again, heavier this time, like it had been waiting for me. We went down the ramp. The rows of them were still there, silent, staring. Noah wasn't in his corner anymore. The tall, thin thing was gone too. At the center of the chamber, my mom stopped and turned to me. "You think this is a prison?" she said. "It's not. It's a pantry. This is where we keep what matters." She knelt by one of the black plastic bags and untied the knot. I didn't want to see, but I couldn't stop looking. Inside wasn't a body. It was parts, wrapped neatly in butcher paper, stacked like cuts of meat. The paper was stamped with dates, some from years before I was born. My dad took one of the packages and held it like it was fragile. Some families keep pictures. We keep this, a piece of everyone who's ever mattered to us, so they never leave. He put the package back and tied the bag shut, his hands careful, almost tender. Something moved in the shadows behind us, slow, dragging steps. When it stepped into the light, I realized why it seemed familiar. It was my grandmother, or at least it had been. Her skin was paper and veins, her lips drawn back in a permanent smile. Her eyes didn't blink, but she was upright, walking, breathing in short, wet hisses. My mom reached out and touched her cheek. "Still fresh enough," she murmured. "We'll have you sitting at the table again soon." That's when I understood. The people in the walls weren't just stored. They were used, pieces taken, shared, and somehow put back. It wasn't death. It was preservation. My dad put a hand on my shoulder. His palm was warm. Too warm. "You've been chosen to carry it on. We need someone who won't waste what's given." Before I could speak, something cold wrapped around my wrist. I looked down. Noah, or what was left of him. His eyes were glassy, but his grip was strong enough to pull me forward. The others began to move too, slowly standing, shuffling toward me. Their mouths opened, and this time sound came out. Not words, but a deep, wet clicking, like hundreds of tongues tapping bone. I pulled away, but my mom caught me. Her voice was calm, almost soothing. "You'll understand soon. We don't bury, we keep, we feed. And one day, when it's your turn, you'll be kept too." My dad took something from his pocket. A thin strip of paper, yellowed with age, with my name written on it in ink that had bled into the fibers. He slid it into a crack in the wall, and from the darkness behind it, something took it. I don't remember running back up the ramp. I don't remember slamming the door. I just remember waking up in my bed, morning sunlight spilling through the blinds, like nothing had happened, except my phone was gone, and in its place, on my desk, was a single package wrapped in butcher paper, stamped with tomorrow's date. If anyone ever tells you their family doesn't have a graveyard, don't ask why, because sometimes the dead aren't gone. They're just waiting in storage. The Pyramid of Balmoral is the scariest thing I found so far on the dark web. Okay, so before I start, I'm gonna say this straight up. I don't care if you think this sounds fake, because not only me, the universe can prove that everything is connected in this world to the universe, or whatever is hiding outside there. If you're here for one of those creepypasta, but it's actually just a cool RG stories, you can click away now. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here because I've been freaking out for weeks, and I don't know where else to dump this. I'm 21, living in Manchester. I work part-time at Starbucks, waste too much money on Deliveroo, and spend more hours than I'd like to admit scrolling TikTok until my eyes hurt. I'm not some hacker prodigy, but I've always been curious. Like, I'm the guy who will watch a 10-part YouTube documentary about the Cicada 3301 puzzles at 2 a.m. just to see how it ends. I grew up on late-night Reddit threads about the Max Headroom incident, conspiracy iceberg videos, all that weird internet rabbit hole stuff. So when my mate Chris suggested we go deep web diving one Friday night, after a few drinks, I was in. Not to buy drugs or hire hitmen, that's movie crap, but to poke around the weird forgotten corners, the stuff people don't talk about. We fired up Tor, hit a few pastebin link dumps, and started going through random onion sites. Most of them were dead or just scams. We were laughing at the fake buy uranium here pages when we found it. The link didn't have a flashy name or logo, just plain text, almost like someone didn't even care about making it look interesting. Balmoral/internal access. Chris smirks. Balmoral? Like the castle? Maybe we'll find King Charles's OnlyFans. We click it. The screen goes black. For about 10 seconds, nothing happens. Long enough for Chris to groan. Ugh, another dead one. Then slowly, a single image fades in. It's a pyramid, but not like an Egyptian one. This thing is brutal, cold, black stone, sharp edges, no visible doors or windows. The lighting in the picture makes it look like it's swallowing all the shadows around it. And it's in the middle of some dark forest, the kind where the trees look older than any building you've ever seen. Underneath, in tiny white text, the watchers are not accepting new pilgrims at this time. That's it. No links, no menus, no about page. Just that. Chris grabs a screenshot, sends it to our group chat, and posts it to his private Snapchat story with the caption, "New summer holiday spot." We close the tab and move on. I forgot about it within an hour, until the next morning. I wake up to 3 Instagram follow requests from accounts I don't recognize. No profile pictures, no posts. Usernames like PilgrimPilgrim22, Watcher17, and Arrival Soon. Weird, but whatever. Probably bots. Then I'll look at who they follow. Each account only follows one person. Me. I'm telling myself it's nothing, just coincidence. But at work that day, something happens. I'm wiping down tables when this guy comes in. Tall, shaved head, black trench coat. It's the middle of June. Way too warm for that. He orders a latte, sits in the corner, and doesn't touch it. He's not looking at his phone. He's not looking at the window. He's looking at me. Every time I glance his way, his head tilts slightly, like he's studying me. I try to ignore it, but after about 20 minutes, I can't take it anymore. I go over to grab the cup and say, "Hey, are you..." But he's gone. I didn't even hear him leave. I pick up the receipt he left behind. On the back, written in dark red ink, are 3 words: "The Watchers See." When I got home that night, my phone was at 37%, even though I'd charged it before work. Battery usage showed Instagram had been running for 9 hours straight in the background. I opened it. I had a new DM request. No profile picture, no username, just a string of random numbers. The message was just a single GPS pin. I clicked it. It was somewhere in Scotland, right outside Balmoral Castle. If you want me to keep going with part 2, that's where things stop being weird internet mystery and start getting genuinely dangerous. Like police reports and missing people. Dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see that grainy pyramid, that text. The Watchers are not accepting new pilgrims at this time. It didn't sound scary at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like a warning I wasn't supposed to read. By morning, the GPS pin was still there in my DMS. I showed it to Chris at McDonald's over breakfast. He thought it was hilarious. "Mate, someone's pranking you. Maybe it's one of the guys from the group chat. Chill out. Balmoral Castle's a tourist spot. The Queen died there, didn't she?" But here's the thing. The GPS pin wasn't to the castle itself. It was to a location about 2 miles east, in the middle of a forest, with no roads leading to it. Google Maps just showed a blur of trees. That same day, I started noticing little things. The same black coat guy. I saw him again. this time across the street from my flat, leaning against a lamppost. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe he was just some random guy waiting for an Uber. But when a bus passed between us, and I looked again, he was gone. And then there was the smell. It started that evening, faint at first, like burnt plastic mixed with something metallic. It was coming from my kitchen, except nothing was burning. My oven wasn't on. My sockets weren't overloaded. It would just hang in the air for a few minutes and disappear. I went to bed early, phone face down, trying not to think about it. But at exactly 3:11 a.m., I woke up to my phone buzzing. Not ringing, buzzing, like someone was calling me on silent. The caller ID said, "Private caller." I answered without thinking. Silence. Just faint static. Then a voice. Deep. Slow. Almost like it was echoing in a huge empty room. "Pilgrim. Accepted." Click. My stomach dropped. I sat there sweating, phone in my hand, not moving for what felt like forever. When I finally looked at the screen, the call wasn't in my recent history. The next few days were a blur. I kept seeing shadows where there shouldn't be shadows, hearing knocks at my door at night with no one there. My Instagram DMs were filling with images, all black, except for one pixel of light somewhere in the center. Then on Thursday, Chris went missing. I called him that morning about meeting up, but his phone went straight to voicemail. His mom messaged me on Facebook that night, asking if I'd seen him, because he hadn't come home from work. By Friday, police were involved. That's when I got the envelope. It was shoved halfway under my flat's front door. No stamp, no address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was Chris, sitting in a chair in some dimly lit room. His head was slumped forward, hair covering his face. His hands were bound with what looked like barbed wire. Behind him, on the wall, was the pyramid. Not a photo of it, a mural. And on either side of it stood two people in those same black coats, wearing masks that looked like human faces stretched too wide. On the back of the Polaroid, in the same red ink as the Starbucks receipt, was a date, 14th of July. Arrival. That was 6 days away. I went to the police with the photo. I swear to God, the officer barely looked at it before sighing and sliding it back across the desk. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stop wasting our time. If your friend's missing, we'll find him. But these staged pictures don't help." I wanted to scream at him. Instead, I left. That night, I got another DM. This time, it wasn't just a black screen. It was a video. It started with the camera moving through a forest at night, the person holding it, breathing heavily. The trees were tall, old. I recognized them from the blurred Google Maps view of the Balmoral pin. After about 30 seconds, the camera stopped and slowly tilted up. There it was, the pyramid. Only it wasn't black this time. It was glowing faintly, like the stone itself was breathing, and there were people, dozens of them, standing at its base in perfect lines, all wearing those black coats and stretched skin masks. None of them moved, not even to blink. Then the camera turned. Chris was there, on his knees, blindfolded, his mouth covered with duct tape. Behind him, one of the masked figures stepped forward, holding something I couldn't quite see. The camera zoomed in, and my stomach turned. It was a surgical bone saw. The video cut to black before anything happened. I didn't sleep at all after that. I don't even remember deciding to pack my stuff. I just did it. But when I got to my door, there was something wedged between the handle and the frame. It was a strip of barbed wire, fresh, still wet, and dangling from it was Chris's necklace. I'm writing this now from a motel in Aberdeen, 2 hours from Balmoral. The smell is stronger here. That same burnt plastic and metallic tang. I keep seeing the same 3 cars in the parking lot, no matter what time I check. I know they're following me. It's 5 days until the date on that Polaroid. I don't think I'm gonna make it that long. If you want me to write part 3, that's where things get into the worst of it. Actual arrival at the pyramid, what the watchers are, and what they do to pilgrims. I left the motel at 4 a.m. No headlights, just creeping along the back roads toward that GPS pin. My stomach was in knots, but staying put felt worse. Every mile, the air got heavier, like there was less oxygen. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, but it wasn't from the cold. I parked 2 miles out, near an old service road choked with weeds. No signs, no gates, just a muddy trail leading into the forest. I started walking. The further I went, the quieter it got. I'm not talking country quiet. I mean dead. No wind, no birds, not even the crunch of leaves under my boots after a while. Just my own breathing. That's when I saw the first one. At first I thought it was a tree stump, but as I got closer, I saw it was a person, or what was left of one. They were kneeling, perfectly still, with a black hood pulled over their head. Their hands were bound behind them with something glinting faintly. Not rope, wire. The skin on their arms was pale, stretched tight, like they'd been there for days. I didn't check if they were alive. About an hour in, I started hearing it. A low humming, like a massive generator buried underground. It was rhythmic, almost a chant. With every step, it got louder. Then the trees broke, and I saw it. The pyramid was bigger than I'd imagined, maybe 50 meters high, jet black, with edges so sharp they seemed to cut the sky. The surface wasn't smooth. It was made of massive stone slabs covered in carvings. The symbols weren't letters, but shapes that made my head ache if I stared too long. And they weren't glowing from lights. They were glowing from inside. Around the base were rows of figures in those black coats and stretched skin masks, standing in perfect silence. I counted maybe 60, all facing one direction, toward a wide staircase leading up to a single doorway at the top. And there, on the lowest step, was Chris. He was on his knees, blindfolded, hands bound. His clothes were torn, and his skin was covered in cuts, shallow but deliberate, like someone had carved patterns into him. I was halfway to running toward him when 2 of the masked figures turned. They didn't run at me. They didn't even walk. 1 second, they were 20 feet away. The next, they were right there. It was like my brain skipped frames. They grabbed me, and I swear I felt the bones in my wrists shift under their grip. I tried to scream, but one of them slipped something over my head. A hood, thick and damp, that smelled like rot and iron. I don't remember being dragged inside, but when the hood came off, I was in a huge stone chamber, lit only by torches in the corners. The air was hot, thick with that same burnt metal smell from before. The walls were lined with chains, each holding people. At least, they had been people. Their skin was stretched too thin over their skulls. Their eyes were gone, not gouged out, just absent, like the sockets were never there. Some were breathing, shallow and rattling. Others were still, their heads tilted at impossible angles, and in the center of the room was a stone table. They put me on it, strapped my arms and legs down with those barbed wires, The cuts burned instantly. Whatever was on the metal felt like acid. I could hear Chris screaming somewhere behind me, but it was muffled, like he was far away or underwater. Then he came out. Not a mask, not a coat. Bare skin, pale as paper. His face was stretched wide, permanently grinning, teeth too long to be human. His eyes, God, his eyes, were black all the way through, but they shimmered like oil when the torchlight hit them. Around his neck hung a strip of bloody cloth with the same carved symbols I'd seen outside. He leaned over me and whispered, "Pilgrims, feed the watchers." He didn't speak, just slid an envelope across the table where I was eating. Inside was a map of Balmoral Forest. A red circle marked a spot deep inside, and next to it, in block letters, Harvest, midnight, 28th of July. That was 3 days away. I didn't want to go. I wanted to run, change my name, disappear. But every instinct told me it wouldn't matter. They'd find me. So I went. The night of the harvest, the forest was alive with noise. Not animals, not wind, but voices. Low, constant, like hundreds of people murmuring prayers in unison. The pyramid's glow was brighter now, pulsing in time with the humming. Around it were dozens of wooden tables, each holding someone strapped down, just like in the video. Figures in black coats moved between them, carrying crates filled with ice. And the people on the tables weren't struggling. They looked calm, eyes closed, mouths moving silently, like they were part of something they wanted. I hid behind a fallen tree and watched as the grinning man emerged from the pyramid. He held something high in both hands, not a weapon, not a relic. It was a head, fresh, dripping, the eyes still moving, blinking slow, like the person was still alive somehow. He placed the head in a black basin at the base of the pyramid. The symbols flared blood red, and the humming grew into something else. Not chanting, not human. It was like the forest itself was speaking. That's when I saw Chris again. He was carrying a crate, his face blank, the cuts on his skin deeper now, almost symbols themselves. He walked right past me, close enough that I could smell that metallic tang radiating from him. And then he stopped, turned his head, looked straight at me. His lips moved again. This time, I heard it. "You're next." Before I could move, hands grabbed me from behind, cold, unyielding. The hood came down, the smell of rot flooding my nose. I woke up inside the pyramid, but this time, I wasn't on the table. I was standing in a line with others, all facing the grinning man. Each of us held a wooden bowl filled with something warm and wet. I didn't need to look to know it was blood. The grinning man stepped to me, placed his hand on my chest, and said, "One more harvest. Then you stay." And I understood. They'd let me go before because I was still ripening. Now, they were done waiting. I didn't sleep after the last harvest. Sleep doesn't happen here. The pyramid keeps you awake. Not just your body, your thoughts. Every second stretches thin and sharp until it cuts you from the inside. They didn't tie me up this time. They didn't have to. My body obeyed them like it had always belonged to them. I walked where they told me, carried what they handed me, never questioning. I think that's part of it. The breaking. They don't want you afraid anymore. They want you ready. The night of my final harvest, the forest wasn't silent. It was screaming. Not human voices. Something bigger. Something that came from beneath the soil. The air was thick, wet, and tasted of copper. The pyramid's glow bled across the trees, staining everything red. The symbols carved into it were shifting now, twisting like they were alive, rearranging into shapes that made my teeth ache just looking at them. Around the base were the pilgrims, not bound, not struggling, naked, skin covered in those same carved patterns I'd seen on Chris. They were standing in rows, heads tilted back, mouths open. The glow poured into them like liquid light. Some of them swelled, literally. Their skin stretched tight, veins rising like ropes under the surface. Others shrank, collapsing in on themselves until they were nothing but slack skin on bone. None of them made a sound. The grinning man appeared at the top of the stairs. His hands were clean for once. He raised them, and the forest fell silent. Then the watchers came out. I'd thought the masked figures were the watchers. I was wrong. These things were taller than any human should be, their limbs too long, their bodies draped in shrouds that moved like smoke. Their faces weren't masks. They were empty, black holes that pulled the torchlight into them. When they moved, the air bent around them. One by one, they walked to the pilgrims, and one by one, they reached into them. No cutting, no tools, just pushing their hands straight through flesh as if it was water. When they pulled back, they were holding something that writhed and pulsed. Souls, I thought, but not in a poetic way. These were alive, screaming, without mouths. They placed each one in the black basin at the base of the pyramid. The glow grew blinding. The humming became a roar. I was lost. The grinning man took my hand and led me up the stairs. My feet bled on the stone, but I didn't stop. The watcher waiting for me loomed so high I couldn't see its full face. It reached into my chest. No pain, not like before. Just a freezing pressure, like my blood had turned to ice. My vision went white, and for a second I saw everything. The forest, the pyramid, the faces of every pilgrim who had ever come here, stretching back centuries. I saw the woman from the Nokia video, still alive, still limbless, cradled in the dark somewhere deep underground. I saw Chris. His eyes were black now, his mouth stretched wide, and behind him, more shapes, bigger than the pyramid, moving in the dark water under the earth. Then it pulled its hand back, but it didn't take my soul. The grinning man leaned close, his breath like rot. You stay. And I understood. I wasn't being harvested. I was being kept. They led me inside, past the chamber with the chains, deeper than I'd been before. The air grew warmer, wetter. The walls were no longer stone. They were flesh, veined, pulsing. Every step sank slightly, the floor slick under my feet. We entered a cavern lit by a single red light. In the center was a pit, and from it came the smell, stronger than ever, thick enough to choke on. Around the pit were rows of people, or what was left of them, skin stretched over frames of bone and wire, mouths sewn shut, eyes gone, but their chests still rising, still breathing. They weren't chained. They didn't need to be. Their bodies had fused with the floor. One of them turned their head toward me. I don't know how. There was no muscle left, but they moved. And when they did, the skin split just enough for a whisper to leak out. Help. Me. I backed away, but hands gripped my shoulders. Chris. Only it wasn't Chris anymore. His skin was pale and tight, eyes gone, mouth fixed in a smile that didn't belong to him. You're home, he said, and then he pushed me forward. The pit wasn't empty. It was full of liquid, thick, black, and moving. Something beneath it stirred, slow and deliberate. Hands, too many hands, reached up from the surface and took hold of my arms, my legs, my throat. They didn't pull me under. They held me there, half submerged, my mouth just above the surface so I could breathe. The black liquid was warm. It slid into my cuts, into my eyes, into my ears, filling every space inside me. My heartbeat slowed. My breathing matched the pulse of the pit. And in the dark below, something opened its eyes. They were vast, endless, and they knew me. I don't know how long I've been here. Days, weeks. I don't leave the pit. I don't want to. The voices in the black keep me company. They tell me stories. They tell me secrets about the world above, about how small it is, about how it will all end. Sometimes I see new faces looking down into the pit. Fresh pilgrims, still whole, still breathing. I smile at them. I tell them it's all right. I tell them the watchers will take good care of them. Soon, they'll stay too. Somewhere above, the pyramid hums. Somewhere above, another harvest is coming. And when the grinning man whispers, "Stay," in their ear, I'll be here waiting. Now it's your turn to look. Balmoral/internal access. If you find it, you'll see me. And I'll see you. My daughter's imaginary boyfriend on the dark web. Alright, like I understand that Instagram nowadays is like Tinder, or maybe use Tinder like normal human, but no, my daughter is the smart genius, so now I have to deal with all of this trauma that will haunt me my whole life, right? Maybe some of you can tell me if I'm overreacting, or if I should be doing more than I am right now. I'm a single dad, 35, living in Ohio. Work nights at a UPS warehouse. Nothing special. My daughter Mia is 9 years old. Shy, quiet, the type of kid who draws little anime eyes in the corners of her homework. She's not super social, which is fine. I wasn't either at her age. Everything was normal until about a month ago. It was a Sunday night. I was in the kitchen making ramen and scrolling TikTok when she came in and just casually said, "Daddy, I have a boyfriend now." At first, I laughed. I figured she meant a boy in her class she had a crush on. "Oh yeah? What's his name?" she said, totally dead serious. "Eli." I asked if he was in her grade. She shook her head. "He's not from school. He's from online." That instantly made my skin crawl. For context, I've been strict with her internet use. Her phone is an old iPhone 8 with parental controls. She's only allowed Messenger Kids, YouTube Kids, Duolingo, and Roblox. The most dangerous thing she should have access to is some cringy Roblox roleplay server. So I sat her down and asked where exactly she was talking to Eli. She just shrugged and said, "On the computer sometimes, on my phone sometimes, but mostly, he just sees me." The way she said that, "he just sees me," it didn't sound like a joke. Later that night, when she was asleep, I went through her phone. At first, nothing. Messenger Kids? No Eli in her contacts. YouTube history? Just slime-making videos and anime clips. But then I checked her photos. In between her doodles and selfies with Snapchat dog ears, there were pictures I didn't take. One was of her sitting on her bed, staring at her tablet. The angle was wrong, like it was taken from the corner near her closet. Another was of her lying on the floor, coloring. Again, wrong angle, too far away for a selfie. The last one made my stomach drop. It was her sleeping, in bed, lights off, taken from the doorway. I checked the timestamp, 3:12 a.m. I was home. I was in my own room asleep at that time. The next morning, I asked her about them. She didn't act scared or embarrassed, just annoyed that I was questioning her. "That's just Eli," He wanted pictures. I asked how Eli took them. She said, like I should already know, he just does. Through the computer, I thought maybe it was some creepy Roblox friend. Until that afternoon. We were sitting in the living room, and I asked her if she could show me Eli. She nodded, grabbed my old laptop from under the coffee table, and opened Safari. She typed a bunch of numbers, symbols, and dots into the address bar. Not words, not a normal URL. It looked like code. The screen went black. No icons, no menus, just a blinking cursor. She typed, "Mia is here." And after a second, text started appearing on its own. "Hello, love." My whole body went cold. I slammed the laptop shut so hard, I thought I cracked the screen. Mia just frowned, like I'd been rude. That night, I heard her talking in her room. Not sleep talking, actual conversation. I crept to her door and opened it just enough to peek inside. She was sitting cross-legged on her bed in the dark, laptop open. But she wasn't looking at the screen. She was looking directly at her closet. And she was smiling. The morning after, I caught Mia smiling at her closet. Things already felt wrong. Not horror movie wrong. Not, oh my God, there's a killer in the house wrong. More like walking into your living room and realizing everything's been moved just slightly to the left. That gut deep something's off feeling. When I got home from my overnight shift at UPS, there was a package on the front porch. Small, wrapped in plain brown paper, no return address. Mia was still asleep, so I brought it inside. It wasn't heavy. I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, face down. When I flipped it over, my hands went ice cold. It was a picture of me, sleeping. The angle was from outside my bedroom window. My curtains were closed when I went to bed. There was a note taped to the back of the photo. In tiny, neat handwriting, it said, "You look peaceful." I didn't tell Mia. I didn't want to scare her. But as I was shoving the Polaroid in the drawer, she came into the kitchen, yawning, wearing her unicorn hoodie. She glanced at the package on the counter and smiled. "Oh, he sent it already." I froze. "He? Eli?" She nodded and poured herself cereal like it was nothing. "He says you sleep too close to the wall. It's hard for him to see." That day, I started locking every window, every door, double-checking everything. But it didn't matter, because 2 nights later, I woke up at 3:27 a.m. No noise, no nightmare, just awake. My phone lit up with a notification, airdrop request from Eli's iPhone. I don't know how to explain the way that felt. My stomach flipped, my hands went cold. Airdrop only works within about 30 feet. I didn't accept it. I turned my phone off and just laid there in the dark, listening. That's when I heard it. Soft, slow footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom. I grabbed the baseball bat I keep by my bed, yanked open the door. Nothing. Hall empty. Except the hallway rug was damp, like someone had walked across it with wet shoes. The next morning, Mia was eating breakfast, scrolling her tablet. She looked up at me and said, "Eli says you shouldn't try to scare him. He doesn't like that." I asked her, trying to keep my voice calm, "How is he talking to you?" She smiled in this absent way. "Not just on the computer. He's here too. Sometimes he brings things." That day, something did get brought. When I came home from work, there was another package on the porch. This one was heavier. Inside was a stuffed animal, an old, dirty teddy bear. Its fur was matted, one button eye missing. Around its neck was a cheap plastic necklace with a heart pendant. The pendant had MIA carved into it. The carving wasn't neat. It was jagged, like it had been scratched in by someone's nails. I asked Mia where it came from. She just hugged it and said, "It used to be his sister's. She's not around anymore." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the living room with all the lights on, watching the front door. Around 2:45 a.m., there was a knock. Not loud, just a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap. When I looked through the peephole, my heart stopped. It wasn't a person. It was my laptop, sitting upright on the porch, screen glowing. I opened the door just a crack and pulled it inside. The screen was black, except for a single text line. "She's mine now." The cursor blinked once. Then a second line appeared. "You can watch if you want." And then, without me touching it, the webcam light came on. It showed Mia's room, dark, and something standing in the corner. The image on my laptop burned into my brain. Mia's room, lit only by the faint glow of the streetlight through the blinds. She was asleep, and in the far corner, a figure. It didn't move, didn't sway, just stood there, perfectly still, like a shadow that didn't belong to anything. I shut the laptop and ran to her room. Empty. I stood in her doorway for a good minute, my pulse in my ears, trying to convince myself the shadow was a glitch. Then I saw something that made my knees go weak. Under her bed, not far back, not hidden, was a shoe. Not hers. It was a men's sneaker, dirty, with dried mud caked on the sole. Inside, I could see a scrap of paper crumpled up. I didn't open it right away. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. When I did finally uncrumple it, the message was short. "Stop opening the door." I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat in the hallway outside Mia's room with the bat, staring at her door, jumping at every house creak. Around 4:17 a.m., the sound came again. Not knocking this time. Scraping. Slow, deliberate scraping along the wall outside. It traveled from the living room wall, down the hall, and stopped right outside Mia's door. Then nothing. When the sun came up, I checked. There was a long, thin gouge in the paint, like someone had dragged a nail or knife along the wall. Later that day, Mia came home from school, holding something in her hand. It was a key, an old, rusted house key, with a piece of tape wrapped around the top. The tape had my address written on it. When I asked where she got it, she said casually, "Eli gave it to me. He said now he can come in whenever he wants, so you don't have to get the door for him." I took it from her, but she didn't care. She just shrugged and went to her room. That night, I wedged a chair under my bedroom door and kept my phone camera rolling on the hallway. I watched the feed for hours. At exactly 3 a.m., my phone froze. The recording app locked up and the screen went black for maybe 3 seconds. When it came back, the angle had changed slightly, like someone had picked the phone up and put it back down. And in that 3-second gap, the chair I'd wedged under my door was gone. I didn't hear it move. I didn't hear anything. I stayed frozen in bed until daylight. When I opened the door, the chair was sitting in the hallway, facing Mia's room. There was something on the seat, a Polaroid. This one was of me, sitting on the edge of my bed the night before, holding the bat, staring at my phone. The photo was taken from just over my shoulder. I started feeling like I couldn't breathe in my own house. The next day, I noticed new things. The kitchen knife set on the counter, one missing. The little gap in the blinds in the living room, wider now, A smell in the hallway outside Mia's room, faint, like damp earth. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. Around midnight, I heard Mia's voice from her room. She was whispering, almost singing. I pressed my ear to her door. She was saying something over and over, like a nursery rhyme. "Don't look in the hall. Don't look in the hall." Then she started laughing, not giggling like a kid, laughing like someone who's watching something awful happen to someone else. I backed away. I didn't want to know. I told myself I'd call the police in the morning. At 3:08 a.m., every light in the house went out. When they came back on 2 seconds later, my laptop was sitting in the middle of the hallway, screen open, camera on. It was streaming live video of me, standing in the hallway, looking at it, except I wasn't holding my bat, and I was smiling. I didn't touch the laptop. It sat there in the hallway, screen glowing, showing me standing in that same hallway, same clothes, same posture, but with that wrong smile. The kind of smile that isn't happy, but like someone enjoying a private joke, only they understand. Except the me on the screen raised its hand. I didn't. That's when the feed cut to black. For hours afterward, I stayed in the living room with every light on, Mia's door closed, my phone clutched in my hand. I didn't dare sleep. I just stared at the shadows in the corners, waiting for one to move. At 5:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Texts from an unknown number. We're almost ready. I deleted it without replying, but an hour later, another text. She picked the dress. It's perfect. I went to Mia's room. She was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, with that same old teddy bear Eli had sent her. On her lap was a dress, not one I'd bought. It was old-fashioned, cream-colored, with lace around the collar, like something from the 1950s. It smelled faintly of mildew. I asked where it came from. She just ran her fingers over the lace and said, "He says it's the same one she wore." I didn't ask who she was. I didn't want the answer. That night, I locked my bedroom door, shoved the dresser against it, and tried to sleep. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to a sound. Breathing, not mine. It was slow, deep, just outside my door. I didn't move. The breathing stopped. Then the tiniest scraping sound against the wood, like fingernails dragging lightly. And then a whisper, not Mia's voice, a man's. "You don't have to fight. You can stay and watch." I froze. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe. When I finally worked up the nerve to grab my phone and call 911, the whisper came again, closer to the door. "They won't make it in time." And then, footsteps, slow, walking away down the hall. I stayed there until the sun came up. When I finally opened the door, the hallway carpet was wet again, but this time it wasn't muddy water. It was dark, thick. The smell hit me before I bent down. It was metallic. I checked Mia's room in a panic. She was fine, asleep. But on her nightstand, next to the teddy bear, was another Polaroid. This one was of me, taken from behind, standing over her bed. Except my hands in the photo were red up to the wrists. That afternoon, a box showed up. No return address like before. I didn't open it right away. I took it straight to the dumpster behind the gas station, but when I got home, it was sitting on my kitchen counter. Inside was a VHS tape with "Play Me" written in marker. I don't own a VHS player. Mia walked in while I was holding it. She looked at the tape, then up at me, and smiled. But it wasn't her normal smile. It was the smile from the version of me on the laptop screen. "He says tonight, you'll understand." I asked her what that meant. She didn't answer. She just went to her room and closed the door. Around 2:58 a.m., I woke up again. My bedroom door, which I had locked and blocked, was wide open. From down the hall, I could hear Mia talking. Her voice was calm, like she was explaining something to someone. Then there was a man's voice, low, patient, almost warm. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were about me. And then, for the first time, Eli's voice got louder. Come see. It wasn't a suggestion. Something in me wanted to get up and walk down that hall, but I didn't. I stayed frozen in bed, heart pounding, listening as the voices grew quieter, then stopped altogether. In the morning, Mia was gone. The only thing left in her room was the dress, folded neatly on the bed, and on the wall above it, scratched into the paint, were 3 words, "You took too long." The police report just says, "missing person." That's all they'll give me. They asked if Mia had run away before. They asked if there were custody disputes. They asked if there was anyone new in her life. I told them his name was Eli. They wrote it down without looking at me. That was 3 days ago. The house is silent now, but it's not empty. I can feel it. In the pauses between my footsteps, in the cold air that moves without a draft. The first night after she vanished, the smell started. Not the damp earth from before. This was sharper, sour, like something rotting in the walls. I tore the living room apart, looking for the source, moved furniture, ripped up a corner of carpet. Nothing. Around 1 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number. This time, a video message. I almost didn't open it. It was Mia, standing in total darkness. Her face was lit from below, like she was holding a flashlight under her chin. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. She was smiling. Behind her, just barely visible, was a man's face. Not fully. Just the outline, the glint of eyes, the curve of a grin. He leaned close to the camera and whispered, "You can still come." The video cut to static. The next day, another package came. Inside was a small spiral notebook, the kind she used for school. Every page was filled with handwriting that wasn't hers. The first page said, "Follow the lights. Don't stop, even if you hear her." The rest of the pages were names, dozens of them, each one written over and over until the ink had bled through. Some of the names were crossed out. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I opened my laptop, went to the same black screen site Mia had shown me, and typed, "I want her back." The reply came instantly. "Then come get her." An address followed. Numbers, slashes, a location I didn't recognize. Google Maps showed it as an abandoned building outside town, near the train tracks. I drove there without thinking. It was an old warehouse, windows smashed, graffiti everywhere. No lights except for one dim bulb hanging above a side door. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Every step echoed too long. About 20 feet in, I saw them. A line of old televisions, all turned on, each showing a different room. Bedrooms, kitchens, basements. Some were empty, some weren't. One screen showed my living room. Another showed my bed right now, with the blankets still pulled back from when I left. The third screen froze me in place. It was Mia, sitting in a chair, hands in her lap, smiling. Behind her, in the shadow, something moved. Not a person. Something taller, too thin, joints bending wrong. Its head tilted slowly until it was almost upside down. The televisions all flickered at once. When they came back, the screen with Mia was empty. Then I heard it. The same slow footsteps from my hallway, but coming from the darkness ahead. I backed up toward the door. My hand brushed against something on the floor. Fabric. I looked down. It was the dress, folded neatly. On top of it, a Polaroid. This one was of me, standing in that very warehouse doorway, holding the dress. I didn't take it. The footsteps were closer now. I could hear breathing. And then, Eli spoke again. "She's behind you." I didn't turn. I ran. Out the door, into the cold air, back to my car. When I got home, every light in the house was on. My laptop was on the kitchen table. The screen was split into 4 video feeds. One of them was my bedroom. One was the hallway. One was my driveway. And the fourth was my own back. Lev. Right now. They don't write this part in the police report. They don't write about the packages, the photos, the way she smiled when he stood behind her. They don't write about the sound I hear in the walls now, every night at 3 a.m. They don't write about how, when I wake up, my laptop is always open, or how the camera is always on, or how, just behind my shoulder, there's always another face. Now you know. You shouldn't have read this. It's not a story. It never was. You're still here, staring at the screen, thinking you can just click away when it gets too close. That's what I thought. I thought I was safe because the doors were locked, because the windows were closed, because I knew I was the one holding the laptop. You think you're alone right now. You think the room around you is the same room it's always been. But I want you to do something. Don't turn around. Not yet. Look at the light in the corner of your screen, the one on your camera. Was it always on? No, don't touch it. Don't close this tab. Because now you've seen his name. You've seen what he sends. You've imagined the way his shoes leave wet marks on the carpet. The way his shadow is too still in the corner. The way he whispers your name in the voice of someone you love. That's how it starts. In a week, you'll hear him outside your bedroom door. In 2, you'll find something in your house that doesn't belong to you. By the 3rd week, you'll be smiling without meaning to. And when you finally hear him speak, really speak, you'll realize you're not supposed to be afraid. Because fear means you're still separate. And Eli doesn't like separation. If your camera light just flickered, it's not a glitch. That's him.